Hello everyone, I'm JoltKing627, and today we are going to be reviewing, taking a look at the internals of, and doing some quick mods on the Nerf Ultra Strike. Let's get right into it. Let's start things off with an overview of the blaster. The Ultra Strike is basically another Ultra Striphoid blaster, being a semi-automatic mag-fed flywheel. It's very similar to the Amp, but now it's a full rifle configuration with a very nice long barrel, which is detached for shipping and just snaps right in, and a built-in stock, which is a little short, but it's actually great for me, and it actually has storage for an extra mag, albeit this only comes with the one mag. As far as tactics, we have 3 end strike rails, being 2 on the top and 1 at the front, and we also have a flip-up sight, albeit it's just cheap plastic, and honestly, I think it looks better with it left down. As far as the ergonomics of the blaster goes, it's halfway decent in some ways and a little bit meh in others. The handle itself is pretty great. It's actually nice and large and pretty ergonomically friendly. The trigger itself is pretty nice. It is a geared trigger, however, it does have a lock so that if you are not loaded with a magazine, it won't pull, and even when you are loaded with the mag, if it is empty, it will not pull. It has one of those stupid dart DRMs that the Amp had. Speaking of locks, there's actually an electronic switch at the front here that stops you from revving the blaster if you haven't inserted the barrel, which is kinda sad. I liked how it looked without the barrel. The foregrip up here is actually fairly comfortable. You can hold it like this with your fingers resting on part of the tactical rail, or you can hold it like this, and both are fairly nice. I do like this. The vertical foregrip that the Amp has is pretty nice, but I think I actually prefer this horizontal, slightly angled grip. It's pretty comfortable for me. The mag that it comes with is just the standard 10-round Ultra Mag, but now in solid red with black bumpers, and it of course includes exactly 10 of the Ultra AccuStrike rounds, which do in fact fly pretty straight. Now, let's talk about some things that I don't like about this. Firstly, in standard Hasbro fashion, this side has all of this nice paint, including the chrome here of the Ultra logo in red, and then on the other side, you've got absolutely nothing. I would have rather both sides looked plain like this than have one side that had paint. Come on, that's just ugly. Another thing to note is this actually came scratched out of the box. This is closed packaging, not open, and as you can see here, there is actually some of the shiny red paint chipped off of the A, and I didn't do that. That was actually there. It was the first thing I noticed out of the box, is that it was already chipped. That's honestly pretty sad. My next issue is the Magwell. It's not smooth. There feels like there's some kind of weird obstruction near the end. Like right there. It's very strange. It feels just janky, like it's got too much room to wiggle around in there. The Amp wasn't like this. Here with the Amp, even borrowing the mag from the Strike, it's very, very smooth. It goes in and it comes out nicely, no weird obstructions. And next we have a couple of nitpicks. Number one, if you actually look closely, you can see through the grip here. The shape doesn't actually line up between the red and the black pieces. I don't know why it's like this. There's just a freaking gap. Now, one last thing, and I believe this is because this is a partial lemon, I can actually hear one of the flywheels is grinding against something inside there. I don't know if you can hear it. Right there, it's grinding against something, and that worries me. And that brings us to the part of the video where we compare the internals and do some modification. So here we have the internals of the Ultra Strike. Now, these might look familiar to you if you've ever seen the inside of the Ultra Amp. As you can see, it's virtually identical. There are some small shape changes, like on the cage. This has some ridges here that are bumped down. This does not, but the pusher mechanism looks basically the same. So essentially, inside, these two blasters are virtually identical. There are some improvements between the two, like the original Amp has one layer of batteries beneath this row, and it is a nightmare to get the batteries in there. This one, they are all on the same level, and they are all pretty easy to pop in. I will commend both for having the battery tray being part of this side of the shell instead of the opposite side of the shell. If anyone's ever modded, say, a barricade, you you will understand the pain that is a battery tray that is on the opposite side of the shell from the rest of the internals. Okay, removing the locks from this is going to be fairly straightforward and easy. First of all, we're going to need to remove the screw from this post, and that will let us take the battery tray off, being careful to put it just to the side here and not to snap any of the leads. Then there are 3 screws, one here, and one here, that we will have to remove so we can get at all of the pusher mechanism. Finally, there is a clip here that is for this back strap of the grip, and we can just lift that out like that, and now we should be able to lift off this plate, being very careful not to disturb the gear system. Now, there are 3 pieces that we will want to take out of here. First of all, we're going to take out this piece right here. This is how the Dart DRM actually interacts to lock when you don't have a dart in there. Without this piece, it will do absolutely nothing, so you can take that and its spring and just put it to the side. And then we're going to have to take out the 2 pieces that are underneath the trigger. So this piece and its spring, that can go, and this piece as well. Everything else here should be fine. Now, something to remember is you're going to want to make sure that your pusher gear train is still properly engaged. So we're going to lift that up and push it back like so, and that is how far back the pusher is meant to go. So if your pusher is not flat up against this ledge right here, it is not properly oriented, and you'll want to mess with this gear right here. Now that we have those pieces out, we can actually just completely go in reverse order of what we just did and put everything back together. Make sure not to get your wires caught on anything when you're putting the battery tray back in, and this little thermistor here, or board, or whatever it is, goes in that slot. If you've got any wires outside of where they should be, you can just tuck them back in underneath there, and they should be fine. Now, let's move on to this pesky little electronic lock up here. Now, what you could do to remove this is just cut out the switch and twist these 2 wires together. But I am lazy and I don't want to get out my soldering iron, so we're going to do something stupider. What we're going to do is we're just going to take this out, we're going to use our knife to just cut down this tiny ridge that goes down the center of this piece, and then we're just going to flip the switch around. The knife ended up proving ineffective, so I switched to a Dremel rotary tool, and that worked a whole lot better. So we can now put this switch in backwards so that the plastic actually forces the switch to always be pressed, and we can just wedge it in there. And that completely disables that lock without having to solder anything. Alright, finally, we're going to try and figure out why this wheel is grinding on something. There we go. Okay, so what I'm seeing on the inside here is that it is actually grinding away at the part here, which means that it's leaving plastic on the inside of the wheel. So we are going to get a little bit of very fine sandpaper and sand this down just a hair, and then make sure we don't push on the flywheel too hard. Alright, now we should be able to put this back on and have it actually be proper. I believe we have a winner. Now, while I'm here, I'll quick give a guide to these screws, because there are 4 different kinds of screws here. In fact, one of them has a completely different kind of thread. There are these 2, the shortest screws, and they go in this hole and this hole. Then we have the second shortest, which are all of these, and they go in the holes on the orange part of the plastic up here. Then next we have the longest of the higher frequency thread ones, and those go in all the rest of the holes on the white plastic. So all of the holes but this one and this one, which had the shortest screws. And the rest of these actually have a different, coarser thread, and those are for the softer plastic that is the black and red plastic. So that will go for all of the screw holes in the black and red, including the sight. Alright, without further ado, let's go see it fire. Alright, first up with some AccuStrike Ultra Darts. And now with some regular Ultra. And finally, some Screamers. Alright, final thoughts on the Ultra Strike. This blaster for me is kind of a mixed bag. The blaster has a lot going for it. It has decent firing performance at about 90 FPS, which is what we've come to expect from an Ultra Flywheeler. It's got a really smooth trigger pull, amazing grips, storage in the stock for an extra mag, even though it doesn't come with an extra mag. It even comes with AccuStrike Ultra Darts, which generally fly pretty straight. But there's just things about this blaster that just detract from that. For instance, during the firing demonstration, you may have noticed that darts just come out at random angles. The darts themselves fly straight in their trajectory, but they don't leave the barrel in a straight line. They go out left, right, up, down, wherever they really want to go, and it's completely unpredictable. I personally attribute this accuracy issue to the lack of a dart guide going into the flywheel cage, which is something that could be tinkered with at a later date. But I think the real killer here is, what does it really bring to the table that hasn't already been done? Functionally, it's just an Ultra Amp with a different shell. To make matters worse, if you go on Amazon, you'll find the Nerf Ultra Focus, which is literally just an Ultra Amp repainted in AccuStrike colors, coming with a 10-round magazine with AccuStrike dart and a stock attachment that holds a magazine. And funnily enough, it's the exact same retail price as the Strike. At the end of the day, the only difference between the Strike and the Focus is aesthetics. That said, assuming the accuracy issues are a result of this being a lemon with that grinding flywheel, this honestly isn't a bad blaster. It just doesn't do anything new. If you already have an amp, you don't need to pick one of these up. You know exactly what it's going to be like. If you have neither, the choice between the two is really just your aesthetic preferences. Personally, I'm a big fan of Ultra, and I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun plinking around my basement with this blaster. That being said, if you have any questions or concerns or opinions about the blaster, please feel free to leave them down in the comments section below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and thank you all for watching.